Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Pro Theme Cornerstone Tutorials. My name is Josh Donnelly, and in today's video, we are going to take a look at harnessing the power of the layout builder. Now, there are a couple of different approaches that we can take here, and what I'm going to show you guys today can be applied in many different scenarios. In this specific scenario, we are going to create a portfolio, and we are not going to use the built-in portfolio post type. We are going to do this from scratch. So, we are going to take a look at three aspects of utilizing the layout builder, which is going to be laying our foundation by creating a custom post type, adding custom fields to our custom post type, and then getting into the layout builder and creating an archive for our layout and a single post for our layout. So if you guys do have any other questions, feel free to leave those in the comments, but without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. So what we have here is a very basic install of WordPress. I just installed this plus the Pro theme, and that is it. So you guys get to follow along as we do this from scratch. Now, as I mentioned, we are going to be creating our own portfolio here, or whatever you want your custom post type to be, but in our case, it's just easy enough to follow. And so what we're going to do is turn off the default, this one here, the default portfolio item that comes with Pro theme. And the only reason we do this is because this has some opinionated styles baked into the theme already. This was kind of created before there was a layout builder, so I typically just avoid it altogether. I turn it off on nearly every build, even if there's going to be a portfolio, and I create one myself. So we're going to come up here to Cornerstone, and we're going to jump into theme options first. And as you guys know from some of my other videos, this is a brand new install, so it doesn't have my preferences yet. I like this bar up here at the top where I can have my sizing, my save button, my CSS and JS, and then I like this bottom here down, or this bar here down at the bottom. So we're going to start with that. And we're not going to change all of these theme styles. You guys know how to do that or can figure that out, but we're going to come in here to Portfolio. We're going to go ahead and click on that. And right here where it says Enable Portfolio, which the default is that it is enabled, we are going to simply disable that. Now, not a whole lot happens in our preview here because that's not really what we're controlling. We do want to save our changes. And now, when we jump back over to the admin, you'll notice that Portfolio is gone from our menu on the left-hand side here. So now we need to add a custom post type for our portfolio. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're just going to come in here, click Add New, and search for CPTUI. Now, this is a phenomenal plugin. This is it right here. Super simple and makes creating custom post types throughout your website a breeze. So we're going to go ahead and activate this, and we should see it show up on the left-hand side here, CPTUI. We'll go ahead and click on that, and we're already on the Add Edit Post Types, so we're adding a new post type here. And let's go ahead and give this a slug. So we're just going to call this Portfolio, just because that seems like it'll make sense. Portfolio. And plural label. So this could be anything you want. We'll call this Portfolio Items and Portfolio Item for our singular label. We're going to go ahead and click this Populate Additional Labels. That just fills in all of this stuff down here with one caveat. So we'll go ahead and click on this, and that one caveat is, whoops, we have a capital O there. Let's go ahead and update that. Clear labels and populate, and that fills all of this out below. But the one caveat is this one here under menu name. When I'm building this out for clients, it's just weird to have the word my in there, and that's what this does by default. So we'll go ahead and just delete that. And then as we scroll down, we want to make sure we have an archive. So the archive is like your listing of all your portfolio items before you dive into one single portfolio item. So we're going to come down here, and under Has Archive, the default is that it's false. We're going to set this to true. So now our portfolio post type is going to have an archive that can be assigned to it. The final thing we can do here is under our menu icon, you could bring in some custom icons or just choose one. We'll just choose something random. So like this is a portfolio, so maybe a paintbrush works. And then the other thing I do just to keep things clean for my clients is under supports. I like to only include the title. We'll add in the rest of this later. So like featured image, definitely important, but I don't like the meta box off to the right side. So we'll take a look at how we're going to add that in a moment. So let's go ahead and click Add Post Type, and you'll notice on the left-hand side, we now have portfolio items. Now you can add taxonomies, you can start to get really sophisticated with this, but this video is just going to focus at a high level how we're going to set this up. So now that we have our portfolio item, if I click on add new, there's nothing here but our title, and we want this to be a portfolio in some way, shape, or form. So what we now need to do is come up here to Pro, click on that, and one of the included plugins here is ACF Pro. We're going to go ahead and install that. And ACF are just advanced custom fields, which allow us to add meta fields to our new custom post type. So we're going to go ahead and click activate. And you'll notice that this, once we refresh here, now shows up on the left-hand side as well. So we can create our custom post type using CPTUI, and then we can add custom fields to that post type using ACF Pro. So we'll go ahead and click add new. We'll call this portfolio just for easy organization. And then we want to make sure that under location, so where do you want this to show up? The system doesn't know. As default, it just defaults to a post. So we need to specify where this field group is going to show up. And so that's on our portfolio item custom post type. And so now we can add fields. Now, it's up to you what you want these fields to be. I would suggest that you come up with some sort of naming convention for the field name just to make it easy to remember. So for example, we might call this first one client name, but then under field name, I typically would specify portfolio client name, just so all of my field names in the database are easy to find and easy to access. So portfolio client name, and then maybe we want, I don't know, portfolio work, and this here under field type, we might want this to actually be a gallery of some sort. And then we can come over here and you can have it specify the return format, image array, URL, ID. We'll leave it on image array for now. We can always come back in and change those things. And so there we have it. And then let's say we also want a featured image to go along with this. Maybe it's a piece of work, or maybe it's the client logo. So we'll call this featured image. And this is the only one that instead of using some sort of, portfolio featured image label, we're actually going to have it tie into the actual featured image field within WordPress. And so the way we're going to do that is underscore thumbnail underscore ID. And then we want this to be an image field. There we go. And the rest of this we can leave as is. So now when you upload an image here, it'll automatically be set as a featured image. We have our portfolio work and our client name. Now, the client name might be a weird one just because you're also going to have a post title. So, maybe I'm going to call this project name. And we'll change this here. And publish. So now when we come over here and we click add new portfolio item, here is our title. So this would be, in my opinion, the client name. So this might be, let's do Apple Computers. So that's our client. Project name, I don't know what we want to call this, photography project. And our work that we want to display. So what we're going to do here under portfolio work is add some images to our gallery, and I just have some random stuff here, not my own photography by any means. So let's just load these in and click select. And so that's added in our gallery, and then we also want a featured image. So let's go ahead and associate, this guy here, I like that one, as our featured image. We'll go ahead and hit publish. And there we have it. Problem is, let's take a look at this on the front end of the site. We just have sort of our default single post here when I click on Apple Computers. And if I were to go to the actual portfolio, it's sort of the same thing. Let's go ahead and add in a second item just so we can see this here. We'll call this one Microsoft. And we'll call this video project, even though it's going to be photos, and we'll just use some of those same photos and a different thumbnail. Let's use this one, and we'll publish. So now on our archive page, we should be able to see multiples. but they look pretty ugly here because they're just using the default. And then I could click on one like Microsoft, and again, pretty ugly, but I'm looking at a single. So that's sort of the difference between an archive, that's your listing of portfolio projects, and then a single is viewing a single portfolio project, in this case, Microsoft. So what we've done is we've created a custom post type for portfolio items. We've created custom fields to assign to our portfolio items. We've now added 2 portfolio items here, but it's all pretty ugly. So now the third step is to create our layouts. There's 2 layouts we're going to create. It's the archive and the single post. So let's start with something like the archive. So we're going to jump into Cornerstone Layout Builder. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to open it in a new tab here so we can jump back and forth as needed. We'll click on this little plus sign. We're going to add a new layout. And because we're going to start with our archive, we're going to actually toggle this type down to archive. So this should say archive in the type field. Okay. And we'll go ahead and label this portfolio. And then I like to put this in just so I can tell when I'm going back in that this is the archive. So we'll create a layout. And let's go ahead and just do this from scratch. We're on our blog, so it thinks this is a fresh install of WordPress. So right now the blog is set to my homepage, which is why it's showing me this. You can actually come in here to this little drop down, and you can specify which page you want to preview this as. So let's come in here and say we want to preview this as post type and portfolio item. And so now it's as if this was the portfolio archive. It's letting me preview that page. So you simply do that under the preview here. So now we have an empty field. Now, normally we deal with loopers in consumers. You've probably seen that in some of my other videos. But when you're dealing with an archive, there's actually a built-in looper. And there are ways to override that. There are some advanced things that we can do. We're not going to look at those today. But the looper provider is already here, right? It's providing a looper of all of the portfolio items, right? So what we need to do is create a consumer. So depending on your design, we may want to list these out. Let's say we just want to do, rows of 3, even though we only have 2 portfolio items. We'll go ahead and click on this first one, come down to customize, and make this not a provider, because there already is a built-in provider. We're going to make this a consumer. So we'll go ahead and turn this on. And then what we can do is, because it's already consuming these fields, we're just going to delete column 2 and column 3. You'll see why in a second once we get going. And so now let's go ahead and set up our design. And this is going to be pretty basic just because I want you guys to see how to do it. But obviously styles are your own thing. So I have a column. I just put 2 divs in that column. This top div, I'm going to go ahead and make this an image, and we'll pull through our featured image, and that should, there we go, that's our Microsoft one there. And because it's a div, we need to set a height to it. Now you could do this with an image element as well. Sometimes I like to put text inside here when I'm creating things like this, so I like to use divs, but it's up to you. So under our height, let's do, 300 pixels. Now we can see our Microsoft one and our Apple one. Down here, let's go ahead and put in a headline. And another reason I like to use divs is because now in this bottom one, I could actually put some padding, even though I don't want that in my image above. So let's say we want to do like 3 Ms or something like this. Now we got it. Just for contrast, let's set up some white on our background. And then our text, let's make this a headline. We'll make it, typically, like for these kind of things, maybe this page is called portfolio, so that would be your H1. So like these would be your H2, and we'll make these 1.5 Ms. Again, I'm just doing this quickly, something like that. And once we have that, we're going to go into our content, and instead of short and sweet headlines, which is just the placeholder, we are going to make this the post title. And so now you'll see it says Microsoft and Apple computers. But if I were to just save this and come back over to our archive here, you'll notice it's still the old archive. And that's because I haven't assigned this yet. So now what I'm going to do, now that I kind of like this layout, is I'm going to come up here to settings, and I'm going to click on this. And under assignment, you'll notice conditions. I'm going to click on conditions, add a new condition group, and this defaults to blog is being viewed. That's not what I want. I want post type is portfolio item. And that's it. So you'll see that in here. We're going to go ahead and make sure we save and come back to our archive and refresh. And now, boom, we have a new archive. Problem is, this doesn't actually do anything. So now we need to actually wire up our permalinks. So let's click on the full container, so the column here. And under HTML tag, I'm going to make this a link, so an A tag. And under link, I'm going to click our dynamic content, make this a permalink. And what that does is assigns the permalink of this specific post, so Microsoft, or this specific post, Apple, and we'll take the user there when they click on it. So you'll notice if I refresh this, it doesn't look like these are clickable, so we might want to play with that in our design. But when I click Apple, it takes me to Apple. So let's dive back over here. And on our column, we're just going to do something basic. You can play around with this, but we'll do a border. And I don't know, we'll make this like something crazy, right? Bright green. Now, default, maybe it's gray. And then on interaction is when it's bright green. So now, if I were to come over here and I hover, it actually looks like you could click on this, right? So again, play with your user experience, but you kind of want these things to be obvious that your users can click through on them. So we've done this, we've assigned this, we now have an archive. And so now what we'll do is click on this and view our single post. So what we'll now do over here is come up to Layout Builder. We're going to add a new layout, and this time we want a single layout. We'll call this Portfolio Single, just again, so that in the list we can see it, and we will create. So let me show you what I mean by that. If we go into our layout builder, now it's very easy for me. Obviously it says archive or single, but it's just very easy for me to recognize which one's which when I label them this way. Personal preference, up to you guys if you want to do that. So here we are in our single post type, and so let's go ahead and we'll do this from scratch. We want to make sure that we are previewing what we want to be previewing. So again, in this case, we want to be looking at a portfolio item. It'll default to one. You can always drop this down and pick a different one. So we'll stick with the Apple one. And then what we're going to do here is come up with some design. So I don't know what that's going to look like. We don't have a ton of custom fields, but maybe, you know, here we have our headline. And, you know, something I like doing, I don't like for this box to persist here. So a lot of times I will come in here and under preferences, I will do auto close elements. Now, when I add an element like a headline, that goes away. So little tool tip there for you. So here we have our headline. We'll go ahead and make this our post title. So now we know that this is Apple Computers. We will make it large so it's obvious what we're on. And then we want a gallery. So let's go ahead. Again, you'd probably play with this design a little bit more than what I'm going to do here. But we'll create a row. On that row, we'll go to Customize. We'll make this a looper provider. And we are going to send through some dynamic content. We're going to click on our little icon here for dynamic content. And under ACF fields, because we created ACF fields for our gallery, we're going to click on that. And then under field, we are going to select portfolio work. And it tells us what this is. So this is our gallery. So go ahead and click the plus sign to actually apply it to this field. And so now we have our portfolio work being piped in to this red box here, but there's no design around it yet. So now under our column 1 here, I'm going to go ahead and click on Customize, and I'm going to make this a consumer. And so we can tell it's consuming information, but we can't totally see anything in there yet. Let's go ahead and get rid of our other 2 columns there. So we have our consumer, our looper provider, and our consumer functioning, but we don't see anything. Now, again, you could play around with how you do this. You could use an image element. I'm going to just, for now, make this a background layer. That's probably not the best way to do it, but this will be an image element. And as our image, we don't want a featured image because that would just be the same thing repeated, right? We actually want current item from the looper. So we're going to go ahead and click current item. And now remember, it's pulling from our gallery and it is displaying those items here. So now, if we look at this on the front end, remember we haven't assigned it yet, so nothing changes. Jump back, click our settings, under conditions, we click post type is portfolio item. We save again, and now we have a portfolio. Problem is, I forgot to specify a height on these. So let's go ahead and dive down here and just say 500. There we go. Maybe that's too big. 250. That's a little better. And jump back over, click refresh, and there's our gallery. If we were to jump back to portfolio items and click on Microsoft, there's the Microsoft gallery. So very easily, we've created a custom post type. We've created custom fields for that custom post type. We've created an archive layout, which is this here, which would list all of our portfolio items. And then we've created a single portfolio item or a single layout, which is this here. So I know for the sake of this example, we're calling this portfolio items, but this can be applied to nearly anything across the board. This could be a business directory. This could be a team member profiles. You could even apply some of these same concepts when you're dealing with WooCommerce, though you don't need to create your own custom post type, and you'd want to make sure that you're using the WC archive and the WC single. But even within the layout builder, a lot of this is the same. So I know there are probably questions that you guys will have. Feel free to leave those in the comments, but hopefully this helps get you started on dealing with custom post types, adding custom fields, and using the Cornerstone layout builder. Hopefully you guys find these videos useful. As always, please click the subscribe button, and if you have ideas for future videos, please leave those in the comments as well, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.